as we consider this notion of someone potentially being able to buy TikTok, China would have to agree to let it be sold. And I do wonder how you think Beijing ultimately comes down on this one. Are they going to let that happen?
I don't think many observers think that they will let that happen. Although, of course, we could be surprised depending on the terms that any potential sale, has attached to it. I think that Xi Jinping knows that they also have a lot of ways to retaliate quietly. We don't need a big front page headline on this regarding U.S. companies enforcing sales of U.S. assets. So it's clear that some type of negotiation or deal might be forthcoming here. It's possible.
What actually needs to take place, though? We're going to be in a weird dark period this weekend with a lot of uncertainty around this app. Some have suggested that the companies running the app stores might be well served to bring it down for the time being until there's a better sense of what's going to happen. What kind of liabilities should we be thinking about here in the meantime?
Well, I don't know what they'll do for their own private liabilities, but one of the things that could happen is that TikTok goes dark. And when TikTok goes dark, we will see an outpouring of support for TikTok from its fan base. Mm-hmm. So in some sense, I think a period of darkness for TikTok actually plays toward a resolution of this that keeps TikTok available to American users.
Who is TikTok a greater piece of leverage for, Mary? Is it a piece of leverage for Donald Trump as he tries to extract other things he wants from China, be it what he perceives as fairer trade or a stoppage of the flow of fentanyl that makes its way to the U.S.? Or is this a way for Beijing to say, OK, we'll let you, a U.S. company, take over TikTok, at least the U.S. operations, if you don't, say, slap tariffs on everything?
Well, it's clear, I think, that, China isn't going to miss TikTok in the U.S. very much. So, if this happens, it's not, to use a colloquial form, it's not a lot of skin off of Xi Jinping's nose. But it does have some political liability in the U.S. So what could happen? Xi Jinping could say, aha, I can get something here if I allow this sale. Or the two can decide on something in between. So I think that there is a possibility of a deal here. It would involve providing something for the Chinese if it were actual sale to take place, or it could be something less of a breach. It could be certain co-ownership, for example, some kind of joint venture, obviously more safeguards on data and the user base. But I think that there could be both a deal here on ownership and a technological solution that may make both sides able to see their way forward and keep TikTok available to U.S. users.
Mary, we saw an enormous amount of money plow into ETFs linked to Chinese stock indexes today, options and the ETFs themselves. Wall Street was well aware of this phone call between Donald Trump and President Xi that took place earlier, and there seems to be this new sense of optimism about economic cooperation somehow, despite what we've been hearing directly from those on Donald Trump's team, including Marco Rubio this week, who sat for his confirmation hearing in the Senate, had this to say about China.
We welcome the Chinese Communist Party into the global order, and they took advantage of all of its benefits. And they ignored all of its obligations and responsibilities. Instead, they have repressed and lied and cheated and hacked and stolen their way into global superpower status, and they have done so at our expense and at the expense of the people of their own country.
Does this sound like a trade relationship that Americans should feel confident investing in?
Well, Marco Rubio's views on China haven't changed, and they've been well known. Mm-hmm. People are looking for some bright spot here. The tariffs are out there looming. It does seem that parts of the administration are moving forward quite, firmly toward tariffs. I think a main impetus for the tariffs are not only the campaign promises, but also the need for new revenue in the face of President Trump's desire to extend the tax cuts that he enacted in his first administration. So it becomes hard to see how, these tariffs don't move forward, regardless of what Marco Rubio really thinks. Now, having said that, why might people be a little bit more optimistic? I think it's because President Trump has a reputation as a deal maker. We did see in the first administration that he ended up the trade war with a deal. There is some pressure for the administration to try to force the Chinese to make good on some of the promises that were made at the beginning of 2020. We'll see if that happens. So again, it's optimism. I think that many people, however, are also keeping their eyes on the Chinese economy itself. We had this week the report that China had grown at 5%, but of course, there's a lot of skepticism around that number.
Yeah, how much can you trust the data China itself is putting out is always a question, Mary. As we look forward to Monday and the inauguration, which Donald Trump did extend an invitation to Xi Jinping to attend. Xi obviously is not coming, but the vice president will be attending in his stead. Should we be reading into that at all?
Excuse me. I think it's a good sign. I think it's a very good sign. I think most Americans should want these two sides, these two powerful countries, to be talking to each other, to be trying to solve problems. So, I see Xi sending such a high-level surrogate to the inauguration as overall a very positive sign. And I think that's another sign that may have led investors to perhaps, make some new bets.
It's kind of a contradiction once again, though, isn't it, with the messaging that we've been hearing from Donald Trump and from members of the incoming administration, assuming that Marco Rubio is confirmed, yet we're inviting President Xi to the inauguration? How do you rationalize it?
It's very hard to rationalize. And I think many of us, not only in the observer community, but obviously in C-suites, are wondering where this is going to go. Economists have been warning about the high level of uncertainty that all of this posturing, as well as policy statements and actual policy proposals now, cause for international business and domestic businesses, many of whom source their inputs from abroad. So we have to remember that President Trump has promised not just very high tariffs on China, but also 10 to 20% across the board tariffs on everyone, universal tariffs. And that these will be built into possible scenarios for paying for the tax cut. So you can see that it's a very difficult time for businesses. That has a chilling effect on investment. Right. Some of that is offset by other positive changes within the U.S. And fortunately, we live with a very healthy economy right now. But the uncertainty overall is a negative drag, is a drag on economic activity.